Hi, my name is Megan Chappelle, and today I'll be discussing with you about my workstation. I've created this for a second grade classroom, and it's for a thematic unit called Seed to Plant, and we're just discussing the life cycle of a plant, which is required by the TEKS. So, first things first, I'm going to give each student an agenda, and the agenda is going to be based on their needs. So we have just our average traditional students, and we have our English language learners, those that have been identified with special needs, including dyslexia, and also our identified gifted and talented. We're going to be using the same workstation for all of the students. We want to create a diverse learning environment, but not necessarily making them feel like they are separate or different from their friends. So each agenda is just specialized for them, and it just helps them not be frustrated. But I've also created some I can lists here for the different stations that are included in this one station. And those I can lists will give them ideas of what they can do when they're finished with that day's activities. So I'll go over each agenda in depth, just so you can get an idea and a feel for what I am referring to. Some components that I have here, though, we have the word wall, and the word wall, in each of these, let me see if I can show you without making you feel sick. Okay, the word wall is here, and what you see is those are the definitions that we'll be discussing in the new vocabulary. And then if you pull this out, the definition is actually there. And that will make it easier for those friends who just need a little extra assistance with vocabulary. Now, as I mentioned, I already have the I can list, and there's one called Thinking Station, which is going to be your writing and sequencing. I have one that's called Creation Station, where they'll actually be making something, and then a Word Study Station, where we're getting more in depth and in detail with our vocabulary. Also, I have samples of the assignments that we'll be doing, so you'll be able to see that, and the students will have an example, and then a journal prompt down here. Also, I have folder activities, which I'm a big fan of because they are better for space, and then they can just choose the activity they want to do. The supplies include construction paper, notebook paper, a glue stick, some scissors, just anything that they'll need, and then also some crayons for drawing and purposes. Okay, so now that you have a feel for our the basic components of this workstation, I'll begin by telling you what an agenda would look like for our average learners. And they will be, each student will have, they're not going to be told the group they're in, obviously. I'll just mark this and have teacher conferences with them based on these, during teacher table time, we'll talk about these. So what we're going to do first is our average learners, what I've asked them to do is read Jack's Garden with a partner. And I don't actually have a copy of Jack's Garden, but it would be in this folder, and this gives you directions of the materials that you need for this assignment, and then the directions for the assignment are right here as well. But what they're going to do is they're going to read this book. It's a book, sorry, I don't have it on hand, but they're going to read this book, and they're going to do that with a partner, and that will help them in case they need to identify, if they're having trouble identifying words. And buddy reading is just really helpful, I think, for these average learners. Then after that, what they'll do is they'll complete what I call a Chem chart. And I learned this in my student teaching, and I just love it. It's called Keyword, Idea, and Memory Clue. And what the students are doing is they're using the 6 vocabulary words that they're not using the challenge words, just the 6 regular vocabulary words that are up here. They're writing the word, the definition, and then drawing a picture to help them remember. Then when they're finished with that, what they're going to do is, in that folder I already showed you that has Jack's Garden in it, they're going to have a handout, and it's going to look like this, and it's a flower petal. And what they're going to do is each one of the centers of the flower actually is a part of the life cycle of the plant. So what they're going to do is they're going to sequence it first, put it in the right order, and then they're going to work together as a group to come up with a story, and it's called a never-ending flower tale, because it is a life cycle of a plant, and it just keeps going and going and going. So they're going to come up with their own, and it can be similar to that mentioned in Jack's Garden. What they need to be sure for their special instructions is to include a beginning, middle, and end. And then the last thing that they can do is complete the double plant puzzle, which is up here. And that just has, again, the words, the definitions. They're putting it together. Now, this is going to be good for our kinesthetic learners because they're going to be able to be touching it and placing it and manipulating it so that they are actually working with the vocabulary, putting it with the picture. And at this point, they've already drawn the picture, they've read the picture, they've seen the picture, so they should be doing this. They can do it with the group, but they can also do it independently if they would rather. Now, moving on to our English language learners. This group, they are going to need a little more assistance, obviously, with the language and the vocabulary. So, again, that's why I do have the word wall here, because sometimes for those students it's a little more difficult to remember the vocabulary. And for them, I have recommended that they listen to Jack's Garden on CD, and I'll have that available for them in the classroom. And I just instructed them on their special instructions portion of the agenda to listen carefully to each of the words and just follow along word for word. And then when they're finished, we can discuss it more. Then what I also asked them to do is create a Kim chart, which I explained previously. But the difference for them is that they can associate it with their native word, because that will help them. If we can make an association between, what a plant is and then a plant in their native language, they can do that. I do not mind that, and I think it's good because it gives them a point of reference and it builds on their background knowledge that they already have. So then I want them to respond to the journal prompt, and the journal prompt just says this. Imagine you are a seed, and then you get to choose one. Where are you going? What are you feeling? What kind of plant will you be when you get there? So that's just a fun way where they can be creative and write, and it's not in a very non-pressured way. And then they can do that with a partner. And one thing I'd recommend, just depending on their level of ability, is if they need to speak it and work with the partner and the partner write it, and then they speak it and the other partner writes, they can do that, or they can just work bouncing ideas off of one another, because I know a lot of ELL learners do work better when they are working collaboratively. And then finally, what I'm going to have them do, it's a folder activity, and it's just creating a plant using the new vocabulary. And again, here's the materials they need, so they can just read that, which would be construction paper, crayons, and vocabulary words. And then what they're going to do is they're going to draw a picture of a plant, and then they're going to label the parts. And that will give them an opportunity to get comfortable with the terms and just have a little fun being creative with that as well. So moving on, we have our those students who have been identified with special needs. And these students are going to need a little more help in some of the centers. So I recommend that they round robin read, which is just everybody's following along and reading, and then if you get hung up, then the next person can pick up and start reading. And this just, I feel like, makes them feel more comfortable and helps them build vocabulary, but at the same time not embarrassing them. They're all on the same page. So I love the round robin reading. They need to record that in their reading log, and if they have any questions, they can record those there. After that, I have another activity in the file folder, and it's a matching game, and it's just matching the vocabulary with the function. So we have the vocabulary over here and the definition over here and what it does, and you can just pull the string over, and then they do this with a partner, and the answers are actually here on the back. So that's really fun because they can self-check it, and then it will give them a sense of confidence as they begin doing this. And then as a final activity for them, I'm also going to let them draw a plant, and that it's just because it can be on any level. I don't know any student who doesn't enjoy drawing or being creative, and they can do that with the group. Again, just everybody's participating equally, and then they just need to be able to present that to the teacher when it's their time to conference. And then finally, the final group I'll talk about with you is the gifted and talented group, and these are students who just need a little bit more. And I definitely want to have a classroom that provides for those students as well. Because we're all diverse in how we learn and what we learn, and we don't want any students to be bored in the classroom. So I've included challenge words on the word wall. So one of the first things that they'll be doing is they're going to start by reading Jack's Garden. We're all reading the same book. We're just reading it in different ways so that we can at least have the same foundation of what we're learning and what we're reading, so we can talk about that as a whole group. But they can read that with a partner, and then obviously keep that as a recording it in their reading log. Sorry about that. And then they're going to complete a Kim chart, but the difference in their Kim chart is going to be that they are going to be working, one, independently on it, and two, they're going to be including these challenging words, and they're going to be creating the pictures and the memory clues for that. the next thing they'll do is they will write a never-ending flower tale, and they'll be paying attention to their punctuation and complete sentences. And then will be able to share that with one of the partners in the group. And the final activity, they're going to color, cut, and label this double plant activity. And that's just, we want to make sure that we're not just giving our gifted students just a bunch of extra work, but just making sure that it's adequately challenging. And so I also noticed when I was student teaching that a lot of gifted and talented students prefer to work on their own. So I do give them that option and trust them with that option to be responsible. So this is just a basic overview again of the stations that I've created. It's mainly, as you can probably see, a reading and writing station, but it does have scientific elements, and it is intended for a second grade classroom. It can be adjusted for other age groups, and I appreciate your time, and I will follow up with emailing the sample agendas and references. Thank you very much.